Welcome back. Jordana's here. I'm feeling so much better. So thank you to Adam and David for the extra time this morning because even though we got great news, cancer-free yesterday, my new meds sort of put me off kilter. So I'm thrilled to be back on the air because we're joined by Joe Lindsley. Joe Lindsley, of course, is the founder of Ukrainian Freedom News. He is in Ukraine, an American journalist in Ukraine, has been keeping us updated on his life and what's going on. And if you can hear in the background, and by the way, you can also see this on the CCO Facebook and the CCO Twitter, Joe is experiencing a current air raid siren right now because he's outside. So, Joe Lindsley, welcome to the show. Describe to us where you are and what we're hearing.
Hi, good afternoon. Jordana, it's so great to see you. And let me know if you can't hear me over all of the alarms that are going off now. I can adjust my volume. I'm talking to you from the city of Dnipro, from a rooftop terrace. You can see people up here having drinks after work. You have to now, at this moment, look very carefully to the sky because at any point anything could happen. Generally, the air defense has been working very strong in this city, and that's why people are up here with confidence. This morning was a different story. Yesterday, I was in the city of Odessa. I'm traveling with a film crew to tell stories for 1 week from west to east of Ukraine. And we took a train from Odessa into the city of Nikopol, which is right across from the largest nuclear plant in Europe. We've been hearing a lot about that lately. Tomorrow, the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors are hoping to be able to get in there. But Nikopol, I was there in July. I think I spoke with Paul from Nikopol in June, I think. And even though you could see the Russians right across the Dnipro River, everything was calm there. But in the past 2 months, everything has changed. The city has been shelled almost daily through the night. And my train, we had a 30-minute layover in Nikopol this morning. And I have friends there, and I wanted to say hello and to see how they're doing and to see the city. So my cameraman and I went into the station. The station mistress was so that no one had slept all night. It was probably the worst night of shelling. And she was so upset to see strangers. She called the police. We had a small situation. We worked through it. My friend showed up. At this point, we had 10 minutes to get on the train. My friend said, you got to see our city. So we jump in the car and we're driving down the main boulevard, and you see trees knocked down. You see buildings partially destroyed, windows busted. And this was about 7:30 in the morning. The shelling had stopped only about 2 hours before. And this is the amazing thing. It was heartbreaking and inspiring. You see crews cleaning up the trees, the tree branches, and then men and women, civilians, all different ages, including very old people, sweeping the glass and the debris off their sidewalks, even knowing that within an hour or a few hours they could be hit again. And I saw a woman up above in her window. Her window had been blown out. It was shattered, and she was trying to put a curtain up to cover it. And then there was a little coffee shop, and a man and a woman, a young couple, were walking into the shop, stepping over debris through a broken door, and the shop was still working. And this is, this is their home. Some people have evacuated, but others, they don't really have a choice. They don't want to leave. And my friend told me that he's running his business there. He wants to keep the business going to give people jobs. But he, like many others, they drive their car outside of the city at night and sleep in the fields where it's safer. And that's the situation in Nikopol now.
It's safer because there could be shelling overnight in the buildings, so they're safer in their car in a field. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's absolutely terrible and heartbreaking. And then to see like the old people cleaning the glass, knowing that it's going to be just like that again tomorrow, and it's incredible spirit of resilience. And then a moment of comic relief. We were so caught up in this that we got to the train station. My train was gone. I had my emergency gear, but most of our gear was off on the way to Zaporizhia. And my friend drove us, and we raced there to get to the city to meet the train in time. And the conductor and everyone, they were so friendly. Despite all the stress of war, they were laughing and saying, we knew you'd make it somehow. And so once again, you see the resilience. As you can see here, people during this alarm, I mean, if we hear noises, people will run. But right now, during the alarm, people are still up on the rooftop trying to enjoy a nice evening.
So have the alarms just become second nature? Is nobody paying attention to them? I mean, do they mean anything anymore?
It depends on where you are, and the activity sort of moves, as we've gone through this. Ukrainian Independence Day last week, August 24th, I was in the Carpathian Mountains. The whole country had about 7 alarms that day, and everyone was on edge. You didn't know what could happen anywhere. And it ends up that there was a small train station in Donbass a place I've been before, a little town that got hit and civilians were killed. So it could have been anyone. It's Russian roulette in a way. And like this city of Dnipro has been hit inside the city the last time I was here. But generally the air defense here is strong, and the Russians are focused on the cities along the eastern front. And then right now they've really been hitting poor Nikopol very intently. And then there's the whole nuclear question. I mean, everyone's kind of waiting. You know, the Russians, I think they love the fact that they have the nuclear plant because it makes the world scared. And that's the situation we're in right now.
And there's supposed to be an IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency, that's supposed to arrive in Ukraine, I think today, to talk about the importance of the power plant. I mean, is anything going to come of those talks? Is there going to be any protections for you?
You know, it's hard to know what will come of it, but we did, as we were driving into Zaporizhia today, the IEA was also arriving into Zaporizhia, and tomorrow the plan is to go into the nuclear plant. But the Russians are saying, we're not going to give you credentials. So we don't know what's going to happen. Jordana, I should also note that 2 days ago, there was big, extraordinary news that the Ukrainians were making a counteroffensive into Kherson, Kherson is probably one of the most fertile regions in the world on the Black Sea. It's known for its watermelons. It's been occupied since March. The city of Kherson has been occupied like the way that Nazis occupied cities in World War II. It's been brutal. Ukrainians pushed back on 2 days ago, and Ukrainian Telegram was going wild, but then they had to stop. They realized they were giving the Russians too much information. So all we know at this point is that maybe the Ukrainians have gained about 10 kilometers, where the Russians haven't even gained. Russians have barely gained a mile in the past 2 months. And so we do see something shifting here.
Okay, well, that's a positive update. So thank you for sharing that with us, because we don't get a lot of positive Ukrainian updates. Briefly, we're hearing today of the death of Mikhail Gorbachev. Is that affecting the Ukrainians? Is that top of mind at all? What's the reaction?
You know, I thought it would be. And, you know, I recently watched a video of Ronald Reagan talking about how he works with Gorbachev. But people here, I think actually there's not time for that right now. There's very little sympathy for anything Russian. And there's a series that everything the Russians built up was somehow fundamentally sick, if you could allow something like this today. Gorbachev did not approve of the war. He was very old, but he made some comments about it. And so no, it's not something that people they don't really want to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, they don't have time. They're living in a war zone, and they have to stay alive.
I mean, even here, like this looks like everyone's just having a good time, but the war, if you talk to people, is heavy on everyone.
No doubt, no doubt. I've been following Ukrainian Freedom News. Of course, that's your network. I want everybody to follow and get updates. And you've been talking a lot about U.S. media and how we are reacting to Ukrainian news and what is happening. And you're saying we're getting it wrong. Can you share a little bit about your perspective of the U.S. media and our coverage?
Yeah, and it's one small thing, but I think it has big impact. And last week, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook was on the Joe Rogan show, and he admitted that during the 2020 election, there was the New York Post had a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, and one of the things in that story was about his business success in Ukraine, and then last week, that story came back because social media in 2020 censored the story and prevented people from sharing it. And Zuckerberg and others admitted that they shouldn't have done it. The story actually had credibility. But so when I read stories, whether it's from British or American media last week, rehashing the Hunter Biden laptop story, they all said the laptop contained evidence of Hunter Biden's work in Ukraine, but it was not work in Ukraine. So 2014, Hunter Biden began to work for an energy company called Burisma. The CEO of that company was part of the government of Ukraine up until February 2014, that the people of Ukraine kicked out of the country because this guy was a friend of Putin, as was the president of Ukraine at the time. The people had the revolution. They said, you're not Ukrainian, get out of here. And so this guy, the CEO of Burisma, fled to Moscow, and only then did he hire Hunter Biden. So Hunter Biden, whether you agree, whether you think it's a great thing or bad thing, it's very important to note that it was not Ukrainian corruption. It was the people that Ukraine said, please leave our country, let us govern ourselves. And that small detail is so important because it plays into the Russian propaganda. So even in this story that seems unrelated, people see, Ukrainian and corruption, and it furthers the narrative that Putin wants, that this is somehow a bleak, horrible, Nazi corrupt nation. And it's just not true. I think Ukrainians, by the way, I think are some of the happiest people in the world, even in wartime.
Mm. Well, I love that you're
And
still
honest.
thinking about that story and still covering it, because you're right. Here in the U.S., we have a lot of fake news. We have a lot of stories that get forgotten, but I'm glad that we can count on you to keep digging.
Thank you, Jordana. And I want to say, I met when I checked into my hotel today. There was the soldier having a beer, and he looked really sad. And so my translator and I were talking to him, and we'll call him Dima. I'll change his name. His best friend had died yesterday in battle, and he has to go back and fight tomorrow. And I shook his hand and I said, "It's a victory in Ukrainian, Zapir Moha," and he broke down crying. So if everyone could just think about that guy and everyone else like him that has to go and fight tomorrow and tonight.
We'll say a prayer for Victor. We will. We will. Joe, before I let you go, how are you?
I'm good now. I went to the Carpathian Mountains for a few weeks, and many people who also needed a rest came to visit, and they gave me new energy. And now that's why I'm able to be back traveling around Ukraine. And I mean, today was difficult. Seeing those scenes in Nikopol, hearing the stories. Also, our train stopped throughout the night, and you could hear alarms, and you're not allowed to open the blinds because if the Russians see light, they can attack you. And so it's been quite it's difficult. And even when you see nice scenes like this, I mean, it's people who don't know how much time they have left, which is true of all of us, but especially it's intensified here.
Joe Lindsley, American reporter on the ground in Ukraine, the founder of Ukrainian Freedom News.com. Please follow them. Follow his Instagram page at JP Lindsley. That's where I keep up with you. And of course, UkrainianFreedomNews.com. Joe, we're always thinking about you, always praying for you, and we promise to check in really soon.
Hey, Jordana, thank you. And great to see you.
Great to see you.
Congratulations.
Be well, my friend. Be well. Whew, I always take a deep breath when I see his face, and then I email his mom because I worry about Joe, and I think about you guys all the time. So let's take a quick break, and we'll react to what Joe Lindsley has said here on CCO.